Hey, what's up, everybody? This is BJ Murphy, and I want to talk to you about the BJ Murphy Show Redirecting Our Dollars campaign. Now, did you know that Black Americans have about $1 trillion in spending power? And since 2001, Black spending power has increased by 108%. The BJ Murphy Show, we are dedicated to helping aspiring African-American entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses and provide advertising, media support, coaching, and resources. At the BJ Murphy Show, we're going to continue to be one of the most influential voices in Black America, boldly espousing economic opportunities for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and nonprofit organizations. So to find out how you can become a part of the movement, the Redirecting Our Dollars campaign in your city, reach out to me, BJ at bjmurphyshow.com. That's BJ at bjmurphyshow.com. Can't wait to hear from you.
This is the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is episode 166 of This is the G Podcast. Yes. This is the Langford Freeway, the Langford Parkway, episode 166. If you're in the SWAT, you know what I'm talking about. Yes, I grew up over there. Yet another reason to hate Big Pharma this week, too. As soon as the green stuff, the pollen hits, and folks like me and friends like me start coughing and wheezing, they come out and make an announcement that there's a butyrol shortage. So I can't apologize, but Big Pharma should apologize for that. I know y'all are suffering. You got kids out there who are sniffling, wheezing, coughing, and just unfortunate that this whole albuterol thing. I just hate Big Pharma, but that's what we got to deal with. Tonya B is here, Vi's out this week. Harold Michael Harvey is here. We're going to talk to him in just about a few. And, love him or hate him, we got to talk about his coming up within the show. Chris Rock has stolen the spotlight again with his I Got Something to Say. That's not the title, but definitely this show is definitely about what he's got to say. It's called Selective Outrage. Chris Rock, the Netflix special that was live. We'll talk about it. Memphis Grizzly, John Morant, the star. I guess you could still call him a star if he can keep that Nike deal on IG Live, doing some things he shouldn't have been doing. Buckhead didn't leave the ATL, but we're going to talk to Harold Michael Harvey about whether or not Atlanta's out of the woods. Lori Lightfoot's no longer in Chicago. And as we tape, Selma's 58th Jubilee weekend's happening, commemorating Bloody Sunday in Selma. Biden is there. We're going to talk about Biden, and hopefully he could tell the Black people there that he's got something that's not on sand, not built on sand. So we'll see. We'll talk about that with Harold Michael Harvey. That and more, Tonya B and the T. But let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump into news. I want to do something a little bit different this week. Jump into news with Syracuse Mike. And some of these headlines are actually in the news. So we'll come back and talk about some of these headlines along with some of the newer stuff right after Syracuse Mike. Here we go.
News team, assemble!
It's time for the Week in News with Syracuse Mike.
Enhancements to SNAP, also known as food stamps, are set to expire on Wednesday. The change will impact some 42 million people who rely on SNAP. Households in dozens of states will see their monthly account balances drop by at least $95, with some seeing a reduction of $250 a month or more. Enhanced benefits in Georgia ended this past June. Tuesday was the day that the Supreme Court heard arguments for and against President Biden's student debt relief program. Florida's Maxwell Frost is the country's only Gen Z member of Congress.
We need to ensure that our people don't have this crushing student debt so that way they can thrive. That way they can move to ownership. Gen Z is on track to be the generation that owns the least amount of wealth than any other generation in this country. So I joke, people know me for being Gen Z, but also being able to not afford an apartment here in D.C.
Mr. Biden's plan would cut or eliminate student loans for as many as 40 million Americans. Several Republican states say this is a government overreach. By the way, loan payments are expected to resume either 60 days after the Supreme Court's decision concerning the relief program or 60 days after June 30th, whichever comes first. Chinese officials say they have been open and transparent when it comes to questions about the origins of COVID-19. The Biden administration has pressed Beijing to be more transparent. Both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal reported recently that the Energy Department had determined with low confidence that a lab leak was behind the eventual outbreak and pandemic. The Energy Department oversees labs in a national network. China has dismissed the findings. One of the biggest questions for years has been, did the virus originate in animals or leak from a Chinese lab? We still don't know for sure. Tuesday was the day that the Supreme Court heard arguments for and against President Biden's student debt relief plan. Mr. Biden's plan could cut or eliminate student loans for as many as 40 million Americans. Conservative justices indicated that they were skeptical about the power of the president to forgive millions in loans. Here's Chief Justice John Roberts.
If you're going to give up that much amount of money, if you're going to affect the obligations of that many Americans on a subject that's of great controversy, they would think that's something for Congress to act on.
A decision is expected in a few months. Polls indicated she was in big trouble before Tuesday's vote, and now Chicago will get a new mayor. For the first time in 40 years, voters decided that the sitting mayor, Lori Lightfoot, did not deserve another term in office. Lightfoot came in third with about 17% of the vote in a crowded field. Now, Paul Vallis, the former CEO of Chicago Public Schools, and Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson will face each other in a runoff next month. The big issues hurting Lightfoot: Chicago's crime problems, her battles with police and teachers unions, and the city's slow recovery from the pandemic. Former UGA defensive star Jalen Carter turned himself in to Athens authorities Thursday and then returned to the NFL Combine after being released. Carter has been charged with reckless driving and racing in connection to the crash that killed his teammate Devin Willock and staffer Chandler LaCroix in January. Athens Clark County Police say racing, reckless driving, speed, and alcohol contributed to the crash. Carter was allegedly racing against LaCroix before the accident. Former prominent South Carolina attorney Paul Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison a day after being found guilty by a jury on all 4 charges in the deaths of his wife and son. Murdaugh's wife Maggie was 52 and his son Paul was 22 when they were found dead near dog kennels at the family's home in June of 2021. In court, Murdaugh admitted that he lied when he told investigators that he was not at the kennels before finding their bodies. An appeal in the case is expected. Drug maker Eli Lilly announced that they will cut the price of most of their insulin products and will cap the monthly cost. The White House is taking some of the credit for the news. On President Biden's official Twitter page, he reminded everyone that the cost of insulin for seniors on Medicare is currently capped at $35. But in his State of the Union address, he said we needed to finish the job. Adding, well, today, meaning yesterday, Eli Lilly announced that they're lowering prices for everyone else. It's Women's History Month, and that means an honor for one of the world's most popular singers, from Congressman Robert Garcia. AURN's Ebony McMorris reports.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the end of Black History Month and the beginning of Women's History Month by honoring an individual who represents both so well. She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is now and forever the moment. I want to celebrate none other than who I believe is the undisputed queen of pop and R&B, Beyonce Knowles Carter.
The California Democrat says this moment was not because she recently won her 32nd Grammy, giving her the most Grammy wins ever in history, but because
Beyonce is also a role model for millions across the country. She stood up for voting rights, for feminism, for women and girls, for my community, the LGBTQ plus community. For my generation and so many others, she simply is the greatest of all time.
For AURN News, I'm Ebony McMorris.
Hello, Michael Harvey.
Yes, sir.
You and the wife got your Beyonce tickets yet?
Not yet.
I know you're going to get something, right?
Hopefully we'll get them, though.
Oh, they're already left is the question. You know, they added a third night here in Atlanta, so.
Surely I jest. Harold Michael Harvey's in the building. Y'all give it up once again. Thank you so much for coming in, sir. Yes. Deal with my foolishness. You know, I appreciate you putting up with me, man, because we you know, we're going to do the show off the show. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I enjoy the conversation.
Yes. Anyway, man, coming up, you know, the Georgia Senate, of course, rejected the foolishness of Buckhead. Let me stop. I shouldn't say that. I'll let you say that, but because it's foolishness. But the Senate rejected Buckhead's plan for secession. Is Atlanta really out of the woods, Harold Michael Harvey?
No, I don't think so. You know, that move was all about a power grab, a white power grab by senators and community leaders who don't live in Atlanta or Buckhead or have any ties to Buckhead. So the sponsors of the bill lived in Podunk, Georgia, somewhere away from the Atlanta metropolitan area, and the main instigator for the petition is is from New York. There's a transplant from New York, and so that's all about white power. And the undercurrent of that is to destroy a city that is being ruled politically by Black people.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a done deal yet. I think that bill will find new legs in the next legislative session next year.
Okay, because if people don't realize, if you, again, we have folks from all across the country who listen to the podcast, 38 to 40% of the tax revenue comes from Buckhead.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine taking a 40% hit in a major city, tax-wise?
Oh, I'm a resident of Atlanta and Fulton County, and of course, the Buckhead left the city limits of Atlanta with the wealth that is up in Buckhead. My taxes are going to go up, and I don't like that, not one bit.
Yeah.
I think I'm paying too much already.
Yeah, and you guys are paying, some astronomical, definitely housing, some taxes on your houses.
It's housing, period.
Ooh.
But it's going to force a lot of people, like all the people that Tyler Perry bailed out with those large tax payments.
Yep.
That's not going to last forever. And those same people and a lot of people that are probably on the, not too far behind them in line will experience the same thing. They will be forced out of this city. And it could be by design, like you were saying, if Buckhead does separate from Atlanta, Fulton County.
Yeah, so true. The other thing is the Biden administration is facing a challenge. Supreme Court again. So with the Supreme Court looking at or hearing arguments on student loan forgiveness. What do you see? Trouble ahead?
Trouble ahead, yes. If the questioning of the justices was or is an indication of what their ultimate decision might be in the student loan case, it looks like it looks like they're going to strike down the executive order that Biden issued. The cut that you just played from Syracuse Mike on the news about Chief Justice Roberts saying that with that type of money, the large sum of money, that it ought to be legislative enactment as opposed to being done by a declaration of the chief executive. So I think the votes are probably there to strike that down, and there will not be any student forgiveness in the near future for my nieces and nephews and second cousins who have student loans, and I wouldn't mind seeing them have the student loans forgiven. I don't have any problem with it. I had student loans. I paid my student loans off. It took me, a number of years to pay them off, but eventually I did it. But on the other hand, I have no problem with a new generation being forgiven of their student loan debt.
I got you. Another Biden situation with DC statehood. I sent you the article. There's some members of Congress, on the Democratic side, felt they were blindsided by his decision not to go for DC statehood. Can you give us some insight into that? We, of course, we're not in DC, but we definitely take a look at which it's impactful because I think DC statehood has been something that many of us across the country have looked forward to. We have, even if you don't live there, but what are your thoughts?
Well, of course, I can go back to the early 1970s in my desire or having an interest in having the District of Columbia designated a state. And so we all have sort of, we all in our community at least, have all pushed for that and look forward to the day when it would happen. But it seems like there's a little politics in play here, and I think the issue that Biden is confronting is that the Republicans are gearing up to say that the Democrats are soft on crime in 2024. That's going to be the Republican pitch next year, is that Democrats are soft on crime. And in order to straighten out what's wrong with America, we got to get tough on crime again. And so some of the home rule legislation that was in the bill, the reforming of police, some of the reformation activity around policing was in this bill. Some of the progressive steps that came out of the George Floyd situation stood to pass. And so Biden is sort of like in a quandary. He doesn't want to tie this soft on crime Republican theme around his neck in 2024. And so he sort of very early, before it became a controversy, said, well, okay, if it comes on my desk, I'll veto it.
Yeah.
So he's not for it, and I think that's why he's not for it at this point in time. So they sort of have the Republicans have Biden in a box, and by having Biden in a box, we're back where we were when we had these Democratic senators bobbling up the Voters' Rights Act just
Cinema and Manchin.
So he doesn't have the full authority to do what he want to do. And so he's making at this point in time, he's making the best political decision that he thinks that's in his best political interest right now by backing away from it.
I got you.
I think that's what's taking place.
Okay. The other thing is he's got a challenge as a possibility, primary challenge coming from Marianne Williamson. And, of course, you can laugh at the fact that Marianne Williamson wasn't even close in the 2020 primaries. And, a lot of people view her, I didn't say this, as a kook because of some of her beliefs. And, well, some of the things she said on Oprah and, before she even got into politics. That's a thing. That's all I got to say. That's what folks put the label on. But I will say this, and you and I always have this conversation because, candidly, I don't care. I look at the White House as a means to justify an end. I don't really follow politics or rely on certain leadership based on the color, even though I will tell you, you can look at my voting record and I'm not voting for insurrectionists. I'm not voting for crazies. And, I vote for people who have the Black interest and Black community at heart. And that's what this show is all about. And it troubles me. And you and I always have this conversation that Biden comes across, regardless of what he has done and achieved, he comes across as over-promising and under-delivering to the Black community. And it's always, we'll get you next time. And even to the point where, if you recall, when he was running in the primary in 2020, he was in 5th place before going into South Carolina. I mean, they were talking about the possibility of him dropping out until James Clyburn really came through for him in South Carolina, and he turned. I mean, his fortune turned.
Well, I got to stop you there now because you keep overlooking the importance of the G podcast. Clearly, a week before James Clyburn came out and endorsed Joe Biden on your show, you posed a question to me and said, out of the candidates, what is the Democrats' best choice?
No, he didn't. No, I got you.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That happened here on this show, and
yes, him did.
But I asked you.
That's right. So I'm not going to give the credit for turning things around to Joe Biden because I know I turned those fortunes around for Joe Biden.
Oh, okay. Well, James Clyburn didn't do it. Harold Michael Harvey did it.
There you go.
Let the record be amended. Okay.
I spoke the truth before
Clyburn. Okay. So that's why he won South Carolina. Y'all give it up for Harold Michael Harvey. Yes. He's the reason you have Biden in office. So call him.
Blame it on me, right?
Blame it on Harold. But anyway, Harold Michael Harvey, come on. I mean, I get, the first thing I see on Twitter, and as a matter of fact, Charlemagne, the guy who's on the Breakfast Club this week, got in hot water because, he said something about, it came down to, of course, student loan forgiveness is huge, with millennials and Gen Zs. I mean, it's a huge issue. So on the show, he's like, I think he was talking to Angela Rye. You may have heard the conversation, Tonya B. But he's basically saying, I'm not going to look like I'm going out here. And he said caping for the Democrats. Now, I don't think that means, and a lot of people say, well, you must be a Republican. But even when I talk to, Rob Redding, and whenever there's an opposition to a situation with Democrats, people immediately say, oh, you must be Republican. But I think Black voters are going to have to look at any president who makes a promise and doesn't deliver. I mean, you got, and it's not for us to come back and say, well, according to Civics 101, the president has limited power and it's up to Congress. Ultimately, the presidency, what did Truman say?
Buck stops here.
The buck stops here. So who's ever in that office at that desk will ultimately be held responsible, no matter what. You can blame it on Congress. You can blame it on you can blame it on the House. You can blame it on the Senate. You can blame it on the Supreme Court. But ultimately, the buck stops with him. So I'm just saying, I was watching the Selma 58 on Politics Nation today on MSNBC, and its 58th anniversary as we tape of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the Selma. I won't say the riots, but the police. But it was on the police side. Affirmative action is to some extent a possibility in peril. Again, Supreme Court. Voting rights bill, we don't have one. And it looks like we're not close to one. Police reform, we don't have it. There are a couple of reasons why, but we don't have it. The other thing, and now we're looking at student loan debt. These are things that were promised on the platform that really galvanized the Black vote. Is there a situation where this president is possibly over-promising and under-delivering from your standpoint? And Tonya B., you're here too. So I'll ask Harold Michael Harvey first, and I'd like your thoughts too, Tonya B.
Over-promising? I think he starts out with an agenda of things that he would want to get done. And of course, once you identify an agenda, and you get the job, then the thing to do is get to work to try to get those things done. So I don't know if it's so. I won't go as far as to say he's over-promising. I will say that he has committed himself to certain things for the Black community because he says he owes his his election to the support he received from Jim Clyburn and the Black community. But having said that, the Black community has come up short, not only with this president, but with the last Democratic president we had. And of course, that wasn't anything. Very few people, other than for the wealthy, no one in America got anything from the last president. But if you go back, to Obama, we didn't get voter rights secured. During the Obama years, there was issues with policing and people being shot during the Obama years, and we didn't get anything done. The issue of DC statehood was around. We didn't get anything done, but it seems like the issues that will
see
impact.
they already calling you. They already calling you. They on the somebody's listening and saying, "Hey man, you need to stop." Go ahead.
He's busy. Mm-hmm.
No, they hear what he's saying. They're like, "Hey man, you need to stop." But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Actually, it's my ring camera. My neighbors are.
They listening too. They come.
They'll be at your door talking about what you talking about. What you talking about? They're at the door.
Don't you say nothing about Obama. You bet.
They're right. Jesus, Obama, MLK, and JFK. And RFK.
God.
Yes.
We didn't get anything from him. So
call a ting a ting.
Call a thing a thing. I mean, I was glad to have him as my president. I'm proud that he, that somebody with some black blood, at least that will admit to having black blood, was in the office.
Yeah.
And but getting back to Biden, I mean, he set out an ambitious agenda for black people because he said he acknowledged that we owed him, that he owed us because of the support given to him. I see where he's working on those things, but he hasn't come through. I mean, we still don't have, as you said, a voting rights bill. We still the DC should be, the District of Columbia should be a state.
Yeah, simple as that.
Simple as that. And racism is the only reason I can think that it is not a state.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's from day one. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons why the founding fathers didn't want that to be, particularly because you had so many slaves in the district, back in that day.
Yeah.
So that's me. I don't know the goal on the promise. I think you set forth an ambitious agenda, and he has not. He's not brought the bacon home.
Yeah, Tonya B, your thoughts?
When I look at it like this, you look at the Obama years and you look at the Biden years, and Obama, didn't get as much done as he wanted to because he had what I call the roadblocks of the Republicans.
Yeah.
And that's part of what is Joe's issue right now. He's got a roadblock from some of the Republicans. So you can have that wish list and you can dream the biggest dreams ever and you can promise whatever. But if you find that you don't have control of the House and the Senate, a lot of what you want to get done is not going to get done. I think that's part of Joe Biden's issue. Before you even put all of the sexism and the racism and all the other isms into it, I think that's part of it. Everybody has a great agenda, of what they want to do. I'm going to, like Lori Lightfoot, I'm going to improve education. I'm going to reduce guns on the street. You know what?
But you see what happened to Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, she didn't get reelected, but again, to me, and I'm just gonna call a thing a thing. Mm-hmm. To me, Grady from Sanford and Son, who she kind of conjures, in my opinion, and nothing more.
Oh no, Grady, man, go ahead. Right.
She doesn't have that's what happened to Felicia Moore in Atlanta. They had the personality of a wet lo mein noodle. They had no charisma. To me, when I look, I get more charisma swag from Kwame Kilpatrick than I get from Lori Lightfoot. I'm just going to call a thing, as I said. And at the end of the day, you got to be honest about it. You got to, if you're in politics and public office or some kind of leadership along that line at all these different levels, if you don't have that and you don't connect with the people, it doesn't matter how much you do, how much of the mail you deliver, and so on and Scooby Dooby Dooby, in the words of Sly Stone, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree.
So you got to look at that too. And the other thing I'll say this about student loans, people have been paying their student loans for years, and if they don't get the forgiveness, I'm going to tell you right now, and you can call me on the carpet. The people that have not been paying their student loans, if they don't get forgiveness, they're not going to start paying their student loans. Now you can't put that in a bankruptcy, but I mean, heck, it took me 15 years to pay off my student loans.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that type of thing. And I didn't go to medical school or dental school, and I'm not a CPA. I'm not a biochemistry, master or anything along that line. So, I think, it will be great to have that happen, or at least give some degree of forgiveness. Maybe not wipe everything out, but give these folks some degree. A lot of these folks that are looking for student loan forgiveness are going to be the people that will probably bring up the rear and come out and vote next year in 2024. And you cannot discount them. You can't discount them.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, though. I get the Republicans. I get it. You can listen to our show. I mean, my record of how I feel about the Republicans and some of the things they've done is this show and the GP3 show. So if you ever have any doubt about where I stand, all you got to do is listen to about 300 episodes. And I'm very clear about where I stand.
Not even that many. Not even that many. Because you are very intentional and deliberate about the way you feel. So people don't get it twisted and don't misunderstand.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this, that if things don't change in terms of delivering on the promises made from the 2020 and even going back, but most recently 2020 campaign, if these things fall by the wayside, then I can tell you it's going to be very, very difficult to galvanize the Black vote the way they did in 2020. They're
called bankrupt.
Regardless, I'm serious. The young vote.
Yep,
this student loan issue is a significant issue to young voters, and if you lose that, if an 82-year-old president who is, he's in there. I'm not an ageist.
No, but his grandchildren.
Michael Harvey's closer than I am, a little bit, just a tad bit closer than I am to Biden. But I'm just here to say that ultimately there are questions already about competency based on age. Okay, then you throw in these challenges. It's going to be very difficult to galvanize that young Black vote. And I'm just telling you, I think that's what a lot of people are saying. People aren't trying to be Republican. They're just telling you the facts. They're telling you what people are saying in the streets. A lot of people, a lot of pundits, a lot of folks who are in it for the Democratic Party get talking points, who are just in that circle, who are there to protect that circle, will continue to maybe blast the people who aren't being forthright. But they need to be real about this. These are real kitchen table issues. So I'm just going to say that and I'll step back. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I will tell you, you better be glad Rob Redding's not on the podcast this week, because Rob would say, "Burn it down." You know what? I'm not saying
we need Rob Reddings. We need some more Rob Reddings out there.
But I'm gonna say this, not in a literal sense, but like you said, nobody wants to see the insurrection is taking over the country and all that happening all across the country. But quite frankly, that may wake some people up. Because a lot of folks are asleep.
No, I don't know if you can say that, because
it didn't wake them up before.
I'm not saying, let me clarify.
The last 4 years were just as bad as anything that the insurrectionists could do if they were in power after the 2024 election.
But I will say this, I will say this, Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey, I'm going to say this. People are creatures of the moment. They're creatures of the moment. This is about what have you done for me lately. Now, I'm not saying
the last moment. Yeah. The last moment didn't shake him enough.
Well, no, I'm saying in terms of the Black vote, in terms of motivating the Black vote, there are already issues in other parts of the country. Georgia, I will tell you, getting Ossoff and getting Warnock in office twice, Georgia voters came out. But how are you going to motivate those Black voters going into 2024? Because a lot of folks are starting to feel that they're being taken advantage of. And I'm going to say that we got to get ready to go, because let me ask you a couple of light questions, then I'm going to roll. Then we got to go talk about the Chris Rock situation. You okay with a couple of light questions? It's not going to kill your credibility out there in political world, is it?
Probably not.
I got just one. The UGA, and I didn't talk to you about the UGA situation. The athlete who was in the accident, Walker, and Mike mentioned it in his news. I get that, because initially they made it seem as if the car just ran off the road. But I don't know if it bothers me or if people don't see that the young lady who was driving the car had her blood alcohol was twice the legal limit. In addition to that, she was doing 104. Mm-hmm. So I get that Jalen Carter is getting a lot of the heat, but they're not saying anything about this lady who was driving the car. I know she's deceased, and they're not going to do blood alcohol on the other people in the car because they only do it on the driver. I mean, in Georgia. But just thoughts on that, man, and I'll let you go.
Well, it's a tragic situation all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
If her blood alcohol level was twice the legal
limit, mm-hmm.
More than likely the people who participated in that party celebration with her probably had alcohol limit probably the same or more.
Yeah, they weren't driving.
Yeah. Well, but now there's an allegation now that Carter was street racing.
Yep.
With the young lady.
Yeah.
So he didn't stay at the scene in order for him to get tested. So we don't know what his blood alcohol level was.
All right.
I'm a little disturbed about the initial reporting because, you get the impression that it was a single car accident. Car ran off the road for some unknown reason. And now, evidence is coming forth that there were two automobiles drag racing in throughout the streets of Athens at high rates of speed.
Yeah.
They called, and one car ran off the roadway and hit a pole and took the life of the driver and a passenger.
Yeah.
And then you have to look at the cavalier way that that Carter is going about it.
Yeah.
Flew into Atlanta, into Athens, turned himself into police. In 15 minutes, he was bonded out. And in that afternoon, he was back in Indianapolis at the football compound, answering questions from team owners. And so presumably, he's going to get drafted very high. I mean, going before the accident, he was targeted to be a first-round draft choice.
Mm-hmm.
He may fall out of the first round, but he'll get big dollars, and he's a tremendous athlete. He'll have a good pro career. But I mean, there's a lot of questions there that hovers over this situation in terms of this athlete's participation in an event that led to the tragic death of two young people, just like the situation at the University of Alabama with the basketball player.
Yes.
Where
he had the gun and actually he had possession of the gun
in his car. He says he had no knowledge that the gun was in the car. But then he participates in a pregame ritual where some kid pats him down as if he has to be patted down for a gun. It's just so tone deaf or brain deaf after such a tragic, being involved in such a tragic and violent incident.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So I'm questioning where the morality is in these young athletes today.
Yeah, and even and I'll leave it at this because we gotta go to break. But even with the schools, it just comes down. Honestly, you have to look at the program as well. Yeah, definitely. Okay, all right, y'all. Yeah. Let's go ahead and we're gonna go to break real quick. Harold Michael Harvey, again, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you. And we gotta have you back. Gotta definitely have you back, man. So great. Definitely appreciate you. Let's go to break, and we will come back with hopefully the tea with Tonya B. But we'll come back in just a minute. Thank you so much, Harold Michael Harvey.
BJ Murphy, and I want to talk to you about the BJ Murphy Show Redirecting Our Dollars campaign. Now, did you know that Black Americans have about $1 trillion in spending power? And since 2001, Black spending power has increased by 108%. The BJ Murphy Show, we are dedicated to helping aspiring African-American entrepreneurs launch and grow their businesses and provide advertising, media support, coaching, and resources. At the BJ Murphy Show, we're going to continue to be one of the most influential voices in Black America, boldly espousing economic opportunities for entrepreneurs, small business owners, and nonprofit organizations. So to find out how you can become a part of the movement, the Redirecting Our Dollars campaign in your city, reach out to me, BJ at bjmurphyshow.com. That's BJ at bjmurphyshow.com. Can't wait to hear from you.
Now then, children, it's time for tea.
It's tea time, y'all. Sipping the tea with Tonya B.
Oh, yeah. Let's hope that she's here. And remind her that she does not need video. She can turn that off. But either way, what's going on, Tonya B? But let me do this before we get into that, Tonya B. I watched, and you watched it as well. So the big news is, regardless of anything else that's going on this week, I think the biggest news this week is definitely Chris Rock and Selective Outrage. And as always, I take the time to do the heavy lifting so the audience doesn't have to. Tonya B, you had a chance to check it out. It was a crazy Saturday night. Netflix, for the most part, really, they figured out that there may be another opportunity with these live events. And I think Amazon pretty much has already done that with football, Thursday Night Football. But I think you can expect the way this went. It was a success. I think you can expect more, either concerts or even more comedy shows, possibly boxing. They're going to be using the live vehicle to help them continue to drive their revenue because, of course, the on-demand part of their business has stalled. So I'll leave it at that. But we want to get into the show. And you know what? Quite frankly, no one was safe. The Kardashians he went in on. R. Kelly he went in on. Michael Jackson, Snoop. He talked about woke businesses. The abortion thing, he spent a whole lot of time. I mean, more time than I expected.
I think too much time on that.
Yeah. It was like kind of cringy at a certain point. He went in on white men. He went in on, not necessarily going in on trans, but just our, the outlook or how people view the trans community when he talked about his brother and his dad, if he gave the scenario. The other thing is politics. He went in on OJ. I wonder what Draymond Green was how he felt, because I doubt he knew that was coming his way. And I'm not gonna tell you because a lot of folks probably haven't already seen it. But the Draymond Green jokes, they were funny, but I was like, damn, I wonder how Dre feels about that. That was like, whoa. And hang on, I'm gonna let you get to it. Dayton. 50 plus. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say there are a lot more players in the NBA that are a lot more chocolate than Draymond Green.
Yeah, I think he just picked Draymond out because he lives in that area. I think he lives in that area. He's a fan of Golden State, and Golden State just tends to be the champions. They won the championship last year. The other thing is, picking on Dayton, 50 plus women. And of course, he got to Will Smith. But let me say this about the Will Smith thing. And Tonya B, again, you watched it. Did it not feel like it was starting to get real personal to you?
Well, I think that's one thing that it got personal. I think the fact that he hit it early on in, the show, so to speak, and then he went back to it again.
But he didn't
the last 10 minutes.
That he didn't go into it, but he hinted, kind of teased it. But at the end, I'm asking, do you think it got personal?
I don't think it got personal. I think what it was like, let me just show your ass how I am winning from what you did, no matter how many times you try to justify or apologize for your behavior. That's how I saw it.
But do you not, let me ask you though, on the real, do you not think that there's going to be retribution for Chris Rock calling Jada a bitch? And I quote, that's a quote directly from him, as many times as he did at the end of that show. And him calling Will a bitch as much as he did at the end of that show. Do you not think there's going to be some kind of payback, some kind of retribution? Because he started going, remember how often he was repeating it?
Oh, what can Will and Jada do to him?
No, but what I'm saying, what I'm saying is, based on the intensity, it's not necessarily what they would do to him, but I'm not one to look at this as, two people, I'm not taking sides. I'm not team Will. I'm not team Chris, because I met them both. I've dealt with them both. I do think that there's probably a little bit more culpability to one side, and I'll explain why. But I will say, in terms of, there are people out there who take sides and clearly take sides. You can see it in Twitter, that there are people who are fans of Will, who are definitely defending Will. There are people who are, fans of Will, fans of Chris. There are a lot of people with the narrative out there that Chris is a quote unquote black comedian doing, blackface white, that most of his fan base is white. So I'm not down with him. I'm down with Will, because Will is a blacker comedian. It's just that weirdness, in terms of those people who will follow. What I see, quite frankly, more than anything, when I looked at it last night, I was hoping, I said, okay, maybe this is an opportunity for them to just bury the hatchet and just move on. I mean, honestly, and based on what I heard, the intensity of what he was saying, it doesn't seem like this is over.
Well, I do think he went a little bit longer than he needed to. The other thing, you talk about our fan base. Will Smith's fan base was black, but now he has a huge white fan base as well. Mm-hmm. So, we are thinking about, let's call a thing, as I always say. And, and I think, people think, when they think of comedians, even like you look at Dick Gregory back in the day, he was an activist. He didn't get out there and just have you like yuck laughing from start to finish. And that is not what I did with watching Chris Rock. Yeah. I have not done that with watching Dave Chappelle, although I have laughed more. But, it was kind of like, he was kind of like, doing some satire, if you will, or some dry wit humor, if you will, because to me, some of those bits were more commentary. Yeah. And that's than my point. Humor. You've got comedians. But he's always been that way. I mean, Chris has always been that way. You got to keep in mind that there's a list of comedians who are what they call observationalists. Okay. They observe. You got like D.L. Hughley. Richard Pryor was, even though Richard was funny as hell in how he presented himself, he was definitely more, politically, astute. He was an observationalist. Mm-hmm. You had George Carlin, who definitely was plugged in, and he understood, before that you had Lenny Bruce. You had Eddie Murphy, who was plugged in, who could be funny. And then, you've had, even Monique, has the ability, some comedians have more. Even when you look at, what was the movie that Chris was in where he played running for president, head of state back in the day? It was horrible. But anyway, but actually, it was, but you know what? It's funny to watch it now. Yeah, because it made, like, you're watching it back then, and him and Bernie Mac, and watching it. But you think about the issues they touched upon in that movie, and we're kind of dealing with a lot of those issues still to this day. But I will tell you that as an observationalist comedian, if you're into that, it was probably more funny than it was for somebody who just wants, it wasn't Def Comedy Jam. No. If you wanted Def Comedy Jam, it ain't Def Comedy Jam. So if that's what you were expecting, you're probably sitting there like, dude, what are you saying? What the fuck's going on? Yeah, blah. This ain't funny. But it's a different type of comedy. I'm not saying, because I sat there too, and there were some people saying, Will needs to come back and slap him into funny again. Chris has, because I think maybe it's because he's getting older, maybe because he's in a different lifestyle. He's divorced, as he mentioned during the show, he's single. He's in a different space. And maybe that's because in my opinion, if you remember Bigger and Blacker was funny as hell. That was funny. This was more of an observationalist type show where people were waiting for him to say something about Will, and he held off to the end. So you're going to see a lot of you can probably see mixed reviews. I'd say probably 50-50 on that. That's my thought. One review I did to USA Today, and I don't know who this person, this so-called critic, who they were, but they compared him to the old man that lives down the street that's always yelling at the kids to get out of my yard and don't come over here type thing. Then if you go to the critic from the New York Post, they loved it, thought it was brilliant, thought it was funny, and mentioned a lot of the things that you did, but they still found it to be funny. So it's just like subjective opinion. And then I did not watch the pre-show, but I did watch the after show. And what's interesting about the after show is that it was hosted by two of Chris's friends, David Spade and Dana Carvey from SNL. But they also had Kareem. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw Kareem and I saw the young lady from Insecure.
Yvonne Orji. But I like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a very dry wit dry as a chip sense of humor that takes you catch it like after he said it and they've gone on to the next person. But the one thing that Arsenio brought up that I thought was really interesting is, you got to watch out, who you try to buck up on. And then he brought up the case of Scoey Mitchell, which was very true. And yes, that was another time, but you didn't really hear much more from Scoey Mitchell after he tried to buck the system until Scoey Mitchell died. But anyway.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I'll say this. I'm going to say this. Ultimately, I don't know why Kareem felt out of place to me, and I'll just say that from my perspective. I thought it was, I give it mixed reviews. I didn't think it was horrible, but honestly, it was worth watching, and I think it's going to be for Netflix. It'll probably go down as their best comedy show ever. When they get the numbers back, because it was live, it was a different type of show. But I'm telling y'all that when you watch it, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, the intensity of how he mentioned Will's name and he went into Jada, he talked about the entanglement, the way he was, his eyes, you could just see it like, oh shit, here we go again.
He was punching Will Smith and Jada from the stage.
Yeah. And he took it like Pacquiao, as he said. But anyway.
Okay. Now, can I finish my tea, please? One thing I took away from this is, I said I had my top 5, T-shirts that I would have, printed for sale from this show. The first one is Snoop Dogg is the new Morgan Freeman. He sells smorgages, whatever it is. Yeah. My other one will be R. Kelly and Michael Jackson, same crime, who had better songs. Number 3 would be I took the hit like Pacquiao. Okay. Number 4 would be the real Kardashian curse. If you caught that, I'm not going to talk about it in case people didn't see it. Yeah. And then I have a tie for number 5, and that would be y'all can pick or weigh in whichever one you think it should be ranked higher. The royal family is the Sugar Hill Gang of racism. I love that one. God. And the other one is they invested in slavery like it was something they were selling on Shark Tank. Boop. Yeah. So that's it.
But you know what I like? And he was talking about his daughter, and he kind of kept using it. Excuse me, but for some of the folks who are sensitive on the show, touche, nigga.
Well, yeah, but you know what? That came usually was just touche. Yeah. Now, I thought, if I charge him $1 for every N bomb he dropped, I'd have more money than every B bomb he dropped. And I'm like, man, but maybe he figured because he was, amongst most of his people. Yes, it was in Baltimore, Charm City. Didn't see a whole lot of people that didn't look like us, but I wonder what the criteria was to get in there. It wasn't like you just went down there and bought a ticket to be, I've been to some of those types of tapings, and there are some people that can go and buy tickets, but the rest of the people get invited by somebody connected to the show. And that's why you saw some local DJs, some local politicians, and
Stephen Hill.
Mr. Shantae Moore. You saw people like him. So with that said, I know we don't have much time. Can I move into my team? No,
real quick. Just let me a couple of things, and then we'll move on from Chris. But the Disney Illuminati package was hilarious. I thought, when he was talking about what they got now that he can get versus being on the church bus. The other thing I liked was the fact that he said he's rich. He identifies as poor, and his pronoun is broke. So I thought that was crazy. And then he went in on older women, which I thought was like, damn. When he said that older women, the first thing he hears from them is, can you help me fix my roof? And they have the worst version of a good car. So, all right, go ahead.
So the young girls don't have a roof, and they don't even have a car. They want you to get them a car. So.
Y'all gotta listen. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away too much of it.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead, Tonya, baby.
okay, I got 4 minutes for 5 minutes for 15 minutes worth of tea, but I'm gonna just try to keep it up. And I'm just gonna roll.
Good. This was worth it.
I'm just gonna roll with it.
Biggest thing of the week, honestly. This is the biggest thing. Go ahead.
What if we didn't have that? Okay, I want to talk about the Jackson family now. T.J. Jackson.
Go ahead.
T.J. Jackson, the son of Tito, nephew of Janet, has come forward saying that he thinks his auntie's shows are too over-sexualized and he doesn't care for it, but she don't care about what he has to say either because she's not responding and he better not ask her for any money. You know, her Together Again tour kicks off April 14th at the Hard Rock in Florida with Ludacris. But what's interesting, what is also ludicrous, no tea, no shade, is there's this gentleman, Jeffrey Phillips or Jeffrey Charles, whatever his name is, and he is allegedly LaToya's ex-fiance, and he was on that reality show that she had, and he did ask her to marry him, and she said, no, I don't want to marry you. But now he's been accused of stealing a bunch of things from Michael Jackson's home a few days after he died, like Michael's pajamas, photographs, gold and platinum records, letters from Michael Jackson's children. Allegedly stole some hard drives, and it was valued at over $1 million. And now Jeffrey is demanding that Miss Catherine Jackson be grilled under oath. Now, mind you, the woman is 92 going on 93. She's had a couple of strokes and she's not in, the best of health. And now Jeffrey's claiming that Catherine Jackson told him to do that. And I think he is not a G. He needs to go over there, sit in the corner with R. Kelly, Nick Cannon, and Jaguar Wright and go fold some laundry. I think that is ridiculous.
Okay. What you got next?
Okay. We talk about Angie Stone. Now, one thing about Angie Stone, she knows how to take the right R&B samples and make a hit record. The OJs, she took I Wish, she used Backstabbers for that hit, I Wish I Didn't Miss You. And she has a new record out called Kiss You, which samples Harold Melvin in the Blue Notes, I Miss You. But in a recent interview, she spilled about how she wrote songs like Apache, Eighth Wonder, and even in the West Street Mob. You remember that? Let's dance. I know you got the feeling. Let's dance. Come on and get down. You know? You remember
I'm
that?
just letting you do the tea. No, I remember.
Okay. All right. No. Angie was saying that she wrote, and that's her singing on those songs, and she never got a dime for it. She wrote it, never got a dime. She sang, never got a dime. And she said when she got to be 25 years old, she was basically told, because of the way you look, you either do what we tell you to do, shut up, or get out. Now, she's a dope songwriter. She's worked and written with people like Betty Wright, Prince, Lenny Kravitz. Of course, she was D'Angelo's Brown Sugar. And Angie claims that she never even got paid for being sampled on Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson's Uptown Funk. And then and when you think about Dr. Dre's Keep the Head Ringing, when you hear ring, ding, dong, ring-a-ding, ding, ding, dong, it's from the sequence Funk You Up. And she said that by the time she and Cheryl the Pearl and Blondie got any thing from that, it was like they had to split like a penny, like the Supremes had to back in the day. So she's really, she was very classy based about how she put people on Front Street, but it's like, don't play with Angie Stone because she is from South Carolina. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about, this is really sad, unfortunately. Tim Norman, the son of Miss Robbie, known for Welcome to Sweetie Pies on the OWN network, he will be in federal prison for the rest of his life for the murder for hire of his nephew. Okay, who kills their nephew for insurance money? A ton of other crimes, mail fraud, and everything else. And there was an alleged future plot for him to kill his mother and to kill his son's mother after he broke in his mama's house and act like he didn't know who did that. And I just, I know Miss Robbie feels guilty about leaving him when she was an Ike, but she needs to stop defending him because I think that's part of his problem. So I don't know how. Yeah, she got in front of the judge and was begging for mercy. I'm like, you gonna beg for mercy for somebody that tried to kill you, that killed you? I'm like, Miss Robbie, you got some issues. I'm just calling a thing a thing. And somehow Tim got somebody to post a message from him on social media claiming his innocence. And I'm like, go over there in the corner and sit down with Jeffrey Charles and R. Kelly and Nick Cannon and Jaguar Wright and fold the laundry because Tim Norman,
goodbye.
He's thank you. Bye-bye. Exactly.
See ya. What you got next?
I'm like, no, see, you wouldn't want to be here. Okay, here's some documentaries. It's like, here we go again with this foolishness. Here comes Jesse Smollett again. There's a 5-part docuseries appropriately entitled Anatomy of a Hoax coming to Fox Nation. Nobody else would take it. And then they decided, I guess, because he's Black on certain days, that it should go on Fox Soul. It comes on March 13th. And it was funny, that was the only takers, but Jesse is nowhere in this documentary, but I'm going to tell you who is in there, and they are talking, they are singing like, they're going to the federal pen. Those two African brothers, the ones that he hired, to participate in the hoax, the ones that he hired that were caught on film buying those items, and the ones that were caught on film rehearsing the hoax. So I don't care to watch this.
That's going to be a 0.0 share. Nobody cares. That's all.
Right, nobody cares.
It's a waste of time.
And if Jesse,
waste of time.
If he wants to have a job, he needs to go somewhere and beg his sister Journey or Jazz or the other ones that are on TV and just work behind the camera, because he tried to come back with that movie on BET Plus and nobody cared about it so much. I couldn't even tell you the name of it. So it's like, And if anybody cares about old Nasty Neil, he's got to pony up millions to his ex-wife Crystal and the children and the 3 children, and he's still trying to redeem himself, claiming that because of what she said it cost him gigs. No, you're out there raw dogging, getting 2 people pregnant at one time while you're married is what cost you your career, fool. And he's self-financing a documentary called In My Own Words, and I don't care about that either. Nor do I care. No else I really don't care about, and this is not a G move, is seeing this new regime at CNN thinking that Charles Barkley's going to save them, and I don't see Gayle King as much as I'm not a fan of CBS this morning, I don't see her leaving CBS to jump on that Titanic call CNN to think that she can save that. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. Appreciate you, Tonya B. Let's go ahead and jump in.
What you watching this week, Tommy B?
Hey, real quick, y'all. Got to say congrats to Michael B. Jordan blowing up the spot here in the ATL as it was shot and filmed. Creed 3 filmed here in ATL, earned $58 million. It tops this week's box office. It's already the biggest opening of the trilogy, so congrats to Michael B. Jordan. Again, Saturday nights, Chris Rock breaks new ground with Netflix, and y'all can expect definitely to see Netflix doing more live because when the numbers come out, if they're willing to actually share the numbers, it's going to show up as a huge number, so we'll see. Also, if you haven't had a chance to see it, you should definitely check it out. I need some feedback on it. The Strays on Netflix just left me shook. Not for the horror, the gore, but just for that crazy ass ending. I appreciate Gigi for reaching out to me and giving me some feedback on something I posted this week. But definitely, audience, we need to talk about The Strays, man. What a crazy ass movie. And it's not bad crazy, but some of y'all may hate it. And it's getting mixed reviews. Fox News, interesting. You should mention Fox News. Really and truly, if I were whoever prosecutes this Dominion trial, I think at the end of this, they need to make Fox News run a disclaimer before every one of these shows. And it should say for entertainment purposes only going forward, because the amount of lying that Fox News has done over the last couple of years, it's like the WWE of news. So I think they should make them actually run a disclaimer. And real quick, Keke Palmer, congrats to her for Leotis and Andreton Jackson on February 26th. Congrats to her. I don't know if I had a chance to say it. Blackish, grownish star Yari Shahidi. She's going to be starring, and she got Twitter all crazy for her being Tinkerbell. I don't know why they hate on the black stars for doing these Disney movies. She's going to be Tinkerbell and Peter Pan and Wendy. Vanessa Bryant has settled the helicopter crash lawsuit. She's going to get 28.8. And also Marseille Martin, who is grown as hell, doing her thing and making money. She dropped the trailer for her Disney series Saturdays. It's going to be out. Tell the Kids, Tell the Children. It's coming out on March 24th. And Paperboy, you know Paperboy, right? Brian Tyree Henry. He's going to be on Essence. Your favorite Bailey, Chloe Bailey, has announced that she's going on tour. And, it's crazy. She's going, filling in the gaps. She needs to just open up for Beyonce if they let her do it. But she is, her In Pieces tour starts April 11th. And check this out. I didn't even know this was possible, that they actually had these kind of numbers. But The Last of Us, which I watch every single week, is at the 1 billion minute week per Nielsen. 1 billion minute stream. That's crazy. And your boys, De La Soul, are streaming on digital. If you missed that music, it's now on digital. They kept it off digital for a long time. So congrats to De La Soul. And of course, Vi's not here this week, but a couple of things, and we're going to talk about this probably next week. And I know, Tonya B., you're out next week. Talib, Talib's going to be on hanging out with me. If you're from the ATL, Talib Shabazz and Jazz ran the legendary music store, Earwax Records, and he's going to be on with me. I ain't talked to Talib in years, so we're going to talk about the Atlanta music scene and stuff. But one of the things we want to mention is the Ja Morant issue. We're keeping an eye on this. The viral footage with him beating up the teenager with a gun on his waistband. Then, you see the separate incident where he and 9 friends reportedly, they're at this Finish Line shoe store in a mall. And the recent allegations also involve someone riding in Morant's car, pointing a laser at a member of the Indiana Pacers traveling party. He denies all this, but now he's on suspension for brandishing a gun on IG Live. So we'll see how that turns out. And y'all quit complaining about Trey in Atlanta, because Trey ain't even close to these kind of shenanigans. He just needs to fix his 3-point shooting on the court, and he'll be all right. Any last minute thoughts, Tonya, before we get out of here?
I know, just for those of us who still love the legend, the legacy of Luther Vandross, check your local PBS station for time and channel listings. They're rebroadcasting his concert from 1994-95 live from Royal Albert Hall. And that was just legendary. So it's on demand. Check it out. We love Luther.
Absolutely.
No, that's Luther. Loofa. Luther.
Love some Luther, man. Can't wait to see it.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Really appreciate you checking us out. Definitely, you can check us out every week live on YouTube. As a matter of fact, I know some of you stream the audio, but if you want to stream the video, this week, Tonya B, we got some technical challenges, but we're working through them. Hopefully, we'll have it done within the next couple of weeks. But you can hear the voice, can't see her, but she's definitely on. Thank you again. Vi's out this week, and hopefully we'll have him back next week. But we will see. With that, y'all, episode 166 is in the can. We appreciate you. Thank you for your support. And give us your thoughts. Go to Castropolis.net. Love to know what you think about Chris Rock. We are out of here. Peace and power to the people.
Langford Parkway.
You've been listening to the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B. The G Podcast is a production of the Castropolis Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.